Okay, we have a mic. So, because of the fact that you're just looking at one channel, it's very difficult to know and understand what's happening outside of that channel. So what's happening with the sales team, what's happening when they're on your website, what's happening elsewhere that they're interacting with you through SMS perhaps, or in the browser or on your website. And also there's sometimes personalization of emails, but it's very simplistic because it's limited to just what's happening in the email channel. So you can use first name, last name. It's just what you hold about them in that channel. And it often tends to land up in the spam box. Not always. You can do just traditional email marketing without landing in the spam box. Often there's one message which is being sent to a huge number of people without customizing it to that user and what their interests are. So you have to work really hard to actually land in the inbox in that situation, because that person may not be interested in what you're actually communicating to them. It feels like being sold something because you haven't taken the time to understand they might have already purchased the thing that you're featuring in that newsletter or that newscast, and it may not be relevant to them. And it just doesn't consider where that customer is in the journey with your brand or your organization. So you may be sending stuff to someone who's been a customer for like 5 or 6 years, and what you're sending them is completely irrelevant to their long history with your brand. Likewise, you could be sending stuff to a new person that isn't really focused on their stage in their position with the brand. And often the message is inappropriate or not of interest to the recipient. And nowadays, people just go, goodbye, spam, or unsubscribe if you're lucky. So that then affects the whole of your domain if you get lots of people doing this. So marketing automation combines using software that allows you to understand more about the whole customer journey and what's happening across the whole of the places that you're interacting with them, and a strategy of what you're going to do about that information that you have about them. It helps us to nurture prospects with really highly personalized, useful content that, with the idea of converting them into customers or keeping them as customers and reducing churn, whatever your goal is through this, this channel. And it puts them at the heart of everything, with a focus on developing that trusted relationship, which is so important nowadays in terms of building a relationship with your customers digitally. And what we're aiming to do is reduce the number of friction points in the customer journey to make it feel like it's just a smooth journey with you from the moment that they first come across your brand to buying, to being a regular customer and feeling like a VIP. So where does Mautic actually fit into all of this? Mautic is a fully featured open source marketing automation platform. It's built on Symfony, currently Symfony 4. We're today working on migrating to Symfony 5. The license is GPL v3, so it's also compatible with most of what you're doing in Drupal. And we also have full composer support, so you can install and manage it in a very similar way to you're used to managing your Drupal stack. It's supported by a young but growing community, so we've been around since about 2015 when it was first open sourced. Acquia acquired Mautic Inc. in 2019, which is a company that was providing hosted services of Mautic, and that became part of their marketing automation, their marketing cloud. And we really do welcome new contributors. We've had lots of people coming over from Drupal who are bringing great ideas and inspiration for how we can do things better in our project. So if you're interested in any kind of contribution, from helping us with our Drupal website to marketing, to code, to PR reviews, whatever, come chat to me or drop into our sprint room. So our vision for Mautic is about being the ultimate fully featured marketing automation stack that you can either use it as a whole thing, or it could be dropped in to just do marketing automation as part of a whole bigger stack. So we're not anywhere near that at the moment, but that's our vision, is actually slimming right down and being able to be just marketing automation layer, but also you can add lots of other things into it if you need those things because you haven't got them in existing tools. And what it actually does under the hood, it does quite a lot of things. A lot of people do start with it just with email, but it also allows you to use multiple channels, text messaging, browser notifications, modals, pop-ups and bars on your website. You can do third-party integrations with things like WhatsApp, N8N, and Zapier. So that kind of really broadens the kind of things that you can do with Mautic. But fundamentally, it solves some of the big gnarly problems that marketers are having to deal with on a daily basis. Having everything about the customer in one place, and that one place may be Mautic, but it may also be a customer data platform like Apache Unomi or something similar to that. So you don't have to have Mautic as your central source, but it can be. It allows you to send both the transactional emails, so like the ones that are telling people about something like an order notification or a password reset or all of those kind of emails, but also allows you to do marketing communications on a one-off basis, on a segment basis, so sending specific information to specific lists, and also being triggered by campaigns based on behavior. So if someone does a certain thing, or if they have a certain property, it can automatically trigger certain workflows. And it allows us also, because we're driving all of this from one central place, it means you can control the communication across all of those places. So it allows you to have that consistent tone of voice and consistent communication based on what you know about the customer. So wherever you see a Drupal icon here, this is something that you would be doing in Drupal. It allows you to track what's happening on your website. So where people go, where they don't go. If they land on certain pages, like how to make a complaint, you could escalate that to the account manager, for example, because they're probably a bit upset about something. Simple things like that. Interaction tracking, so do they open, click, and reply on emails? Open is a bit of a shady subject with the delights of Apple's privacy changes, but you can do these things. Data capture, so we can know about someone as soon as they come to our website. They're an anonymous contact, and they may then want to download a resource or access some information. When they fill in that form, they become a known contact, so we can then link up their activity on the website, the application, whatever, with a known contact. Call to action prompts, so yes, you can make those annoying splash screen pop-ups as beautiful or as ugly as you like, but you can also do subtle bars saying don't forget to use your coupon code at the checkout, for example. You can also integrate with third-party tools like CRMs, point of sales, whatever tools there are that you use in your business ecosystem, and pull and push information into Mautic relevant to where they are in the customer journey. And that allows you to really use multiple channels. So we can create campaign workflows. Say, for example, you were a hotel, that allows you to send them information out about their booking, send them an SMS a week before saying, here's a page on our website with useful stuff you need to bring with you. When they check in, you could send them, here's the top 3 restaurants in the local area in case you need somewhere to go for a meal, on SMS or email if they prefer to receive it by email. You can do those browser notifications. You can do the push notifications if you have an application, for example. And you can also build your own stuff, either natively or using something like N8N. There's lots of third-party tools already in our ecosystem, kind of the equivalent of your contrib modules that allow you to do all kinds of funky stuff. And the way it works is as soon as someone lands on your website, they trigger this tracking script, which can be integrated with your privacy consent manager. So you can have it fire when they only accept to be tracked, for example. And that then builds a profile across all the channels that you have that tracking script. So if you had a website and you had an application, all of that information would be coming together. And we can synchronize that information with all the other tools in your tech stack. So it might be useful for someone to know in your sales CRM what resources they're accessing on the website and what assets they've downloaded, because then you can assign them to the most relevant salesperson to follow up with. So if you know that they're interested in a particular type of fire extinguisher that is relevant for cars, you would assign them to the person who deals with car fire extinguishers rather than tractor fire extinguishers, for example. So it can also improve efficiency within business processes because you kind of understand what they're looking for, what they're interested in. And the profile looks something like this. So if there is an image associated with their email, it will show the image from Gravatar. The chart that you see is like their activity with you, so opening, engaging, clicking on things, accessing resources. And then you get a list underneath which tells you all of the different things that they have done since you first identified them as a visitor. So it will tell you what emails they've received, which ones they've most likely opened, which links they've clicked, which assets they've downloaded, and so forth. And that looks something like this. So you can see here that you've got, oh, come over so I can see it properly. You can see that they've received an email here that it's been sent. They've been changed segments, so they've been moved from one list to another list. This is where actions have been triggered in the campaigns. And this one up here is telling us it's scheduled to send 6 months from this. So it's like sending a re-verification GDPR to make sure we still have consent. So you can get a good overview of what the individuals are doing across the whole of your platform. And we have a simple query builder that allows you to create your list, we call them segments, based on whatever your heart desires, basically, using all of the usual, like includes, doesn't include, like, not like, and, or all of that kind of stuff. So it's very, very powerful. It allows you to build stuff that's really tailored to what you're interested in as a business. And then you can use that to fire particular campaigns automatically, or just to know who are those people who are interested in that particular product or that particular thing, so you can target your sales messages more effectively. We can even use fields like they're already in this segment as part of a list. So if they are in the United States segment and they have this, then they become part of this list. We can use stages, so stages can be created based on your business needs, but you could just have basic bottom of the funnel, middle of the funnel, top of the funnel. You could have warm lead, cold lead, hot lead, that kind of thing. And the segments are all built regularly, so they're fired by cron jobs. And so as soon as the cron job runs, it will rebuild all of those segments and bring in whoever meets the criteria for those cron jobs. It looks something like this, so it's very easy to configure. All you have to do is select from this drop down to make your filters. So you can see here we've got country is Belgium. They've signed up to our community news, so this was when I was going to send an email about an event that we were attending, and exclude anyone who's unsubscribed but hasn't been removed yet, just as a belt and braces. And if they have a tag which includes GDPR consent, so they've actually consented to us sending them emails. So this is what the query builder looks like, and you just select any of your fields from this drop down at the top. So it's very, very easy to use, very interactive, and very smooth onboarding curve for marketers compared with a lot of other marketing tools. So we also have I mentioned a bit about building automated campaigns that can do things automatically for you based on criteria. This is all done through an interactive drag and drop editor. You click things to select them, you drag them to move them. It's a really sexy, nice interface, much, much nicer than a lot of very expensive proprietary tools. And it enables you to build the journey using decisions, actions, and conditions. So these are like the 3 building blocks of our marketing automation tool. We have affirmative, so yes, they did do this, and negative path, no, they did not do this. So you can go set actions and decisions on both of those paths, which is really powerful. So this shows you a little interactive GIF. Oh no, not quite yet. So a decision is something like, have they or have they not done a certain thing? So these are some of the decisions we have. Are they using a certain OS, for example? Have they downloaded an asset? Have they submitted a particular form, visited a particular page? So those are the kind of things you can do as a decision. And as an action, this is something that Mautic is going to do. So it's going to send an email, it's going to send a text message, change campaigns, so like take them out of this campaign, move them into that campaign, send webhooks, all of those kind of things come under the action. And then condition is based on something you know about them. So it could be when they filled out that form, if this field was Suffolk, then go this way. If this field was Norfolk, then you go this way. So there's all kinds of things we can do with that, like are they owned by this account manager, for example? Do they have an active notification? If they do, we maybe don't want to send them another message because they've still got an active communication in that channel, for example. So those are the 3 building blocks, and here's my animated GIF, which will hopefully work. So we choose how we're going to start the campaign by picking a segment, and then we choose the next option, which is send them an email. So as soon as they come into this segment, they'll send an email, which is welcome or whatever. And we'll say if they've opened email, we don't tend to use this nowadays because it's not that reliable, add points. So because they're engaging with us, we want to add 10 points, which increases their reputation in a way. It lets you understand how warm they are. And if they visited a page as a result of opening the email, this is more reliable than opens email, then we can do some things like that. So in this case, we're saying if they've booked a call with us, so we have a thank you page that we're tracking, we can say if they visit the thank you page, we know they've booked a call. Then we can change to a warm lead, for example, and then send another email, so a different email. And with this one, we're actually going to schedule it to send at a particular time of day. You can also say only send it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so you don't bother them at weekends, and so on and so forth. And you can build these campaigns out to be absolutely ginormous, or you can have really simple ones. But it's extremely powerful being able to do all of that in that very simple drag and drop interface. We also now have a really beautiful builder for emails. So you can use drag and drop and create really visually stunning emails which are fully responsive and support all browsers. We're using an open source framework called Grapes.js, which has been integrated into Mautic. And it uses a thing called MJML, which creates all of the lovely code that you need to support Outlook and Internet Explorer and all those other things. So you create the MJML, and then it processes it into the code that is needed to support all the different email clients that you might encounter. And yeah, as I mentioned, drag and drop, fully configurable and fully customizable. So if there are blocks missing that you would want to have for your business, you can create your own blocks, and you can create your own preset to use for this, or contribute them back to the community. And it looks something like this. So this is one of our themes called Brienne's, which allows you to drag and drop from the right-hand side any of the blocks. So you could create an image, you can have separators, you can have all the things that you would expect. Drag them into the side on the left, and then you can configure them, change the sizes, change the images, change anything to do with the template. I think, yeah, this is a little demo showing how you can insert images, for example, and change images. So for the marketers, it's really easy to use. As a developer, you can also create themes that are available for your marketers to use. So they can then go in and tweak the things that you want them to be able to tweak, but you can maybe set the structure up for them so that they don't have to do that themselves. And we can check what it looks like in all the different responsive views within the builder as well. We can also check code mode. So on the left is the MJML and the right is the HTML, so you can see all of the styling. And you can also edit stuff in code mode as well if you want to just dump in some HTML that you've built elsewhere. So it's a pretty nice feature. There are a few bugs, but we're working on those. So I'll talk you through a bit of an example of a fictional estate agent that might use Mautic in collaboration with a Drupal website, for example. So we're starting off this campaign at the top with a form fill. So what we're going to do is say if they fill in certain form fields, we're going to take them down the different paths. So up here we've got them filling in a property inquiry form, and we're immediately sending them a welcome email. If they open the email, if they don't within 3 days, we could send them a follow-up. But as I say, what we tend to do now is say if they access a page that they're kind of directed to, because it's more reliable than email opens. But that will automatically happen within 3 days if they don't open the email in this campaign. We adjust the points, And this is the booked a call that I mentioned in the earlier one. So we're saying change to a warm lead or send them a follow-up if they don't book a call within 3 days. These are all the actions that we're doing within Mautic. So up here we've got sending an email, adjusting points. Here we're adding some tags based on where they're located so that we can segment people and only send them properties in the area that they're interested in and assign them to the right person. So it might be that there's an account manager who covers that area. We make sure that that lead is assigned to that person. And then over here, if they've got a property to sell, so in the form we might say, are you renting or are you selling or are you doing both? Then we would immediately alert the sales team that there's a lead, there's someone who's got a property to sell. We'd add them into a particular campaign, which is about buy with us. So it's like nurturing them to say why you should also buy with us. And then we add some other tags. And then if they don't have a property to sell, then we push some content to the website that's talking about why you should buy with us, rather than having content that's about selling with us, because if they're not selling a property, they're going to be buying. So there's no real relevance to having information on the website about selling if we know that they're not selling a property. We may as well use that website space to be pushing more information. And we add another tag so we can also filter more effectively. There we go. And then these ones are conditions. So this is like if they chose Suffolk in the drop-down regions, we'll go this way. If they chose Norfolk, we'd go this way. So they could do both, potentially, but it's quite rare. There would normally be one or the other. And if they have a property to sell, then we would go this way. Cool. So when we've got these people at the top of the funnel, so that this is a marketing speak for like new people, we're aiming at the top of the funnel, like raising awareness of why they should buy with us or sell with us, trying to understand what they're interested in, and trying to segment them by the location, their requirements, and their budget. If they've got a really high budget, we might actually fast track them to a VIP team, for example. If they are not looking in a particular area, then we might do something different. And as we funnel them down into, we know that they're actually interested in what we're offering. At this stage, we're focusing on trying to get viewings. We're trying to get them to fill in the inquiry form so we know specifically what they're looking for. And we'll use points and tags to help move them through this process. So as they engage with us more, they get more points. We know they're a more warm lead, so we're more likely to have them convert. So in this stage, we're looking at trying to capture the information and trying to book a viewing for a property that they're interested in. We can have, if we've got a particular property that we're trying to sell, like one of your high value properties, you can build specific landing pages within Mautic or within Drupal and embed specific forms for people to actually fill in and get information about those properties. So that's one way of kind of getting information from the user and understanding what their interests are. If we're doing advertising, like regional advertising on Google Ads or on anything else, we can also create landing pages within Drupal or within Mautic with a filtered down list of the properties we have available in that region, for example. And we can also track things like the referral source with UTM tags. We can track their interactions, their engagement with our resources, and understand a bit more about what they're actually interested in. And based on all of that information, we can segment them and send them the right information. We can show appropriate call to actions on the website and make sure that they're sent relevant properties when we do communicate with them, rather than here's everything in Suffolk. We can say here's everything in Suffolk within your price range, which has a garage and a garden, for example. Anyone who's been house hunting in the past will know how frustrating it is trying to sift through all of the stuff if you don't have that kind of filtering. And that could look something like this, for example. Surfacing properties on the website that match their requirements, giving them the option to turn off the personalization that you've already applied based on what you know about them. So you could pre-select filters based on what you know about them, but have the opportunity for them to say, actually, show me everything. And we can do that on the emails as well. If they're in this segment, show them these content. If they're not in this segment, show them this content. And we can pull in information from external tools. So if you had a property management system or something, you could pull those properties into a custom object table, for example, and have all the fields and properties related to that house, which you can use then to filter into the emails that you're sending. Landing pages look something like this with a contact form on the side. The idea here is to try and determine intent. Are they buying? Are they selling? What are their price bandings? Where are they looking for? And also showing that you understand and showing that you care about the customer by giving them options. So particularly in this time of COVID, some people are not actually up for going round people's houses, giving them the option to say, I prefer a live or a virtual viewing, the opportunity to ask questions, because it might be that there's something that's missing in the property specs and they want to know specific information. Again, understanding intent. So we've got some questions on here about buying and selling, and explicitly gaining consent to communicate with them for this purpose. So making sure you're being really clear. We're not going to add you to our newsletter. When you fill in this form, we're just going to communicate with you about this property inquiry. And when they start to come more down into the middle stages of the funnel, this is where we're trying to prioritize the customers that we want to nurture, because they're more likely to become sales. They're more likely to convert. So we can use things like progressive profiling, which is like you don't want to ask them every single piece of information at the first time they fill in a form. You ask them a little bit of information, then the next time you need to know something else, you ask them for one or two more pieces of information. And then you add one or two more pieces of information, instead of whacking them with like a 10-field form at their first interaction. So this allows you to really build trust and to have them understand the reason why you're asking for that information. If they're sending you an email inquiry, they may not want to phone you. So making a phone number mandatory on an email inquiry form is not necessary, but it might be that when it goes to the next stage, you do actually need a phone number. You can make it clear to them, we actually need to have a conversation. So it would be really helpful if you could provide us with your phone number. And this is all done in Mautic out of the box. Using points to prioritize people on readiness to convert just helps the sales team to understand who they should be focusing their time and attention on. And assigning, as I mentioned, high worth customers to specific teams or specific individuals. If you've got someone who wants to buy a chateau, you're going to treat them slightly different to someone who's buying a one-bedroom apartment, perhaps. And we're really focusing on, at this stage, why should they buy with you? Why should they buy or sell with you? So the kind of content that you can push to your website with dynamic content would be the kind of things that are answering the questions that people might have at this stage of their journey with you. And then as we come down further towards the bottom of the funnel, where we're looking at trying to actually make that sale, trying to convert them, trying to have them actually buy the property, we have the opportunity to cross-sell useful and relevant services in this stage. So if they're buying a property with you, they might need a mortgage, they might need legal advice, they could need help with a will, they might need removal services, for example. Understanding the customer and understanding what's helpful at different stages can actually really help to boost your brand, your trust, and just be more helpful when people are at a very stressful time in their lives. Also setting up expectations post-close, so you can have an automated process that once they actually get to a certain stage, you send information to them that says, amazing, wonderful, you bought your house, here's what happens next, here's the timelines you can expect, here's the people that you're going to be interacting with and why you're going to be interacting with those people. So it sets expectations, and you can automate things like sending them a text message the day before they're coming in to pick up their keys to say, don't forget to bring your ID, don't forget to bring blah blah, here's a list of the useful resources that you might need on your first day. Providing useful information about the local authority. When is the bin day? How am I going to get my kids to school? Where are the local schools? All that kind of information is easy enough to collate into an email that you can send automatically based on where they bought their property, for example. There's also an opportunity to thank the customer and show appreciation for trusting you with this sale of their house or with the purchase of their house. For example, you could automate sending them a gift when they actually move in. You could do that all through Mautic. You could send all of the purchasing information, contact information to, for example, Deutsche Post, and then automatically send out a gift card for IKEA or something like that. You can automate all of that process. And also the good old-fashioned customer satisfaction surveys. So having that all automated at the end of the process to say, how did we do? We'd really like to know. We'd like feedback on what the experience was like for you, either through email, SMS, or whatever channel. So why Mautic and Drupal? I think probably you've seen some examples of why they work quite well together in terms of bridging that divide between the website and the marketing team. First and foremost, the license is compatible, so it's an easy sell. If you've already sold Drupal and people already are understanding the open source model, then enabling them to look at things like Mautic and consider that instead of something like MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or Marketo or whatever else it is an easier sell. Also, it's based on Symfony, and although we do some things slightly differently to the default with Symfony, it is a relatively easy opportunity for developers who are already familiar with Symfony from Drupal to get familiar with Mautic. The freedom. I mean, first-party data is becoming so important. Having your own data, having it on your own domains, not having to worry about third-party cookies and domains and what have you. Being able to move your own data whenever you need to a different platform, for example. Being able to own that and being able to upscale as you grow and not have to pay to add extra seats and add extra features and functionality and things like that. Much like Drupal, it's not free as in never going to cost you anything. You will have to invest in development if you want to build your own extensions. But it's much more sustainable than some of the proprietary tools out there. Integration, we already have full integration with Drupal, and there's lots of different ways you can integrate with Drupal. There's lots of different things on Drupal.org if you have a look for the different Mautic projects there. But you can also write your own. So we have an open REST API. You can write your own integrations. You can do whatever you want, really, with Mautic. Digital experience is a massively growing sector at the moment. It's pretty much the buzzword in the industry. Mautic is also experiencing a lot of growth, which is great. So it's definitely something to start thinking about if you are providing Drupal services. How are we actually supporting customers who need to do more with their websites, who need to do more with their marketing, for example? And how do we support them to do that with open source? And then finally, community. Much like any open source project has a community, we have a community. As I mentioned, it's small, it's growing, it is worldwide, it is international. And yeah, we'd love to have you join us. So I'm not going to whiz through these ones because we're not going to have time to get through all the getting started with Mautic. But basically, when you self-host Mautic, you need a Linux a stack of some kind. You can run it on Windows, but generally we suggest Linux. And generally, we suggest to have it on a VPS or a dedicated server, not on shared hosting, particularly for the newer versions where we're doing much more stuff with Composer under the hood to install and manage plugins. You're going to really struggle. If you don't want to self-host, if you would rather have someone else do that for you, we do have a bunch of community partners. These people financially contribute, but they also have to practically contribute to Mautic in order to be, oh, sorry, it disappeared, in order to be part of our partners program. So they're actually helping create and sustain. They're the makers, basically, of our project. So several of them provide hosted services, so you don't have to do it yourself. You just pay them a monthly fee, and they host Mautic for you, and you can get up and running within minutes. We do have the ability to install from a tarball. We have the ability to install from Composer. We've got a recommended project, very much similar to Drupal. And we also have a Docker image. So if you prefer using Docker, you can use Docker. You can install Mautic at the GUI. You can install it at command line. You can automate that installation at command line as well. We have native DDev support, and we also have gitpod support more recently. And configuring is all documented on our docs. So you just need to set up your how you want to send your email. So you don't have to send it through your server email. You can send it through SES or SendGrid or MailChimp or whatever tool you want to use. And then we set up all of the configuration around that, integrations with whatever tools that you need to integrate with. I'm going to skate through this because you don't need to see recommended project. But we do have a recommended project which allows you to use Composer. And in terms of getting involved with Mautic, we have 5 teams in our community. All of them meet fortnightly on Slack, asynchronously. Some of them also meet on video calls. We have Tiger teams, which are small teams of people who are very specialist in a particular area, who are, say, interested in campaigns or forms or whatever. It's a bit like you have people who are maintainers of certain parts or frameworks, I think it is, so it's similar to that. And we also have working groups for a specific purpose, like we have a working group that manages our website, that deals with running our community conferences and things like that. We work in public, so we have a public jira team for every, a jira board for every team, which is at mautic.atlassian.net. So at the moment, we're working on the Symfony 5 migration. Everything's documented in Epic, and people can just jump in and say, hey, I want to work on that task. Other ways to help are things like triaging issues, so testing it in a Mautic instance yourself and seeing if you can reproduce the problem. We also have bounties in Mautic, so sometimes people really need an issue to be fixed, and they're able to actually assign a money amount to an issue being fixed. So that's also an interesting one if you're interested in helping to support us, but need some compensation for doing that. And because we now have gitpod, you can help with testing PRs, or even just taking Mautic out for a ride and see what it's like. By going to gitpod.io, there's a link on all of our PRs. Or you can check it out manually. So if you prefer to, you can clone Mautic down locally and help us with testing PRs. I don't need to go through these, sorry. We have Mautic Developer Days in one of the sprint rooms today. So if you'd like to come and have a look at what we're actually doing, get under the hood of Mautic, if you have any questions or you'd like to get involved, do just drop in and say hello and meet some of our community. We have very active community forums. So if you do start trying to use Mautic and you get stuck with something, the forums is where we ask everyone to go for support. And we have Slack for just like live chat interaction. We also have a Drupal-based website that's sorely in need of some Drupal help. So if anyone would like to contribute as helping us improve our Drupal website, we would also really, really love some help with that. And we have an online conference coming up. So we've decided to make our World Conference always online. So that's going to be from the 8th to the 9th of June. We're going to be starting ticket sales very soon. There's sessions there for everyone. So there's sessions, really in-depth developer sessions, but also sessions of like, what is Mautic, how to do marketing automation effectively and efficiently. And you can find more information at mauticon.mautic.org, which is also a Drupal website. So that's me done. I think we've got about 5 minutes left, something like that. So if anyone has any questions or there's anything you want to know or comments or anything, then do feel free to shout. And we have this weird throwy box I can try to throw at people if you have any questions. Yeah, I'm not going to throw it at you because I'll probably knock you out right in the front row.
You showed all the good things about Mautic, but
Yeah.
I wonder, are there any pain points at the moment you're working on that the platform is lacking when you compare it to the competitors?
Things that it's lacking compared to competitors. Yeah, I mean, some of our main pain points are that we've come from Symfony 2 and we still have quite a lot of old Symfony 2 code in the code base. So that's one of the sort of technical aspects that we're working on. Another pain point is once you get to big scale, it can be really challenging infrastructure-wise to send. It's not so much the sending out millions of emails, it's more like tracking all of the emails and the page hits and the interactions that come back. So performance, those are the really big thing that we're working on. In terms of features, one of the biggest things that we've had a challenge with is like people getting started and not really knowing what to do with marketing automation. So one of our initiatives this year is around creating a campaign library, which will have like best practices, examples. How do you do a double opt-in? How do you do a birthday or anniversary campaign? And it will have the campaign, like I mentioned there, but also all of some example emails and landing pages and things like that that you can use, which you can then just click, yeah, I want that, and it will set it up for you in your instance. It's quite complicated to build that, but that's one of the things that we're aiming to build, because the onboarding process in Mautic is not amazing. It's not as slick as others have been. So, yeah.
Hi, first of all, thanks for the talk. It already covered a lot of topics. But what we're struggling a bit with, we're getting a lot of questions about marketing automation, both from like existing clients and new clients. But what we're struggling with is that most of those marketing teams are pretty small and they don't actually know what marketing automation is. They heard it as a buzzword on a conference and suddenly they need or want marketing automation. But then when you start to ask questions like, what do you actually want to do with it? They don't know. So I was wondering, like, do you have any quick wins or examples of like small teams who started with like a basic feature and then expanded on it, or because that's the biggest thing we're struggling with.
It depends on what sector they're in, obviously, but certainly one of the areas that you can really get quick wins is if you are selling something and doing a kind of resell campaign or an upsell campaign automated. That can be a really easy way of showing quick wins. If you go on our YouTube channel from our last conference in Europe, there was a great talk from a guy who did that for the leading coffee seller in Germany, I think, or in Cyprus maybe. And they massively increased his volume of sale just by very, very basic marketing automation campaigns. So, yeah, I think keeping it simple, like starting with really simple by like, what have they bought? Okay, if they bought that, they might be interested in this service. So let's just send them an email about this service and ask them, are they interested? That kind of thing. If there are specific things like wanting people to write reviews for you, that can also be a really simple way of doing it. Once you know there's been a sale, and then if they do write a review saying thank you, with that you just need to be a bit careful that you don't send them thank you if they've written a negative review. You need to take them out of the campaign and deal with them personally. So, which you can do, but you have to think about those things. So, yeah.
Yeah, because it's hard to convince people that it also needs to be like a mental shift at the marketing team side, that it's an evolving process and it's just not just like one click and you have marketing automation.
Yeah, definitely. And in some ways, that's an upsell that you can offer as an agency to actually do some strategy sessions, because it's all great having a tool, but if you're not using it strategically, you're not going to really get the benefit. And in some ways, it can sometimes be more detrimental. The other thing just to flag is that sometimes it can result in a massive escalation in sales. So with that coffee guy, he makes his opt-in form really hard to find because it's just so popular and he can't keep up with demand. So you have to have that conversation of like, if this was immensely successful, how much can you cope with? Because that is also as damaging to a business as nothing coming in. So
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Thank you for the talk. When you're building campaigns, it can be quite complex if you have a lot of factories. And so what's the testing strategy for this? Do you recommend to duplicate your setup in a testing environment? I don't think it's possible to export your campaign and to import them in production. So how do you
some of the companies, so Acquia has a campaign factory which does allow you to export and import campaigns between instances, but that's the secret source, so it's not available in the community. Generally speaking, you can either use a development environment and then have to reproduce everything, or you create a segment with just you, and you send the campaign just to that segment. And then when you actually want it to go live, you switch it to a different segment to go live. So that's often the best way of doing it. Or you have a segment with like 10 people who are anonymous people. The other way you can do it is if you're working locally with DDEV, it installs MailHog for you, so it catches all the outgoing emails. So if you're working locally, you could do that, and then you could potentially have some magic DevOps stuff that whooshes your database up to live, and then the campaign goes live. You have to be a bit careful with doing that, but that could also be an option potentially. Cool. Does that answer the question? Yep. I'm glad I don't have the responsibility of chucking it to everyone.
I'm interested in the cloud native part of this application. What I mean is, for example, in Drupal, we got a module S3FS to have S3 like a bucket to be a file system. Does it support something like that?
Yep, it does. Yeah, we have an S3 plugin which allows you to. So in Mautic, you can upload assets, like they might be PDFs or other resources that people might want to get from you, ebooks or the like. You can upload them into an S3 location, either by using the S3 integration or having them in S3 and copying the public URL and using that as a remote asset rather than a local asset.
Okay.
So,
that's cool. Thank you.
Yeah. We used to have other providers, I think, but I think they were deprecated. I can't remember who the other provider was, but they deprecated the API, so it's just Amazon S3 at the moment. Anyone else? Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much. Hope you have a great rest of your week. And there's stickers. If anyone wants Mautic stickers, in the sprint room we've also got Mortibot stickers, which is our mascot, so